Today in this video, I want to give you some tips on how to stay nice and warm in the winter. There are things that make riding absolutely much better. You're never going to get like super warm, but you'll be comfortable enough to do several hours of riding. So the number one thing that you need is electric gear. Electric gear is an amazing feat of technology for motorcyclists. And previously, when I did not have electric gear, and by the way, I learned pretty quickly that electric gear was the way to go. So before I had electric gear, I had layers. So I dressed in quite a few layers. And if you don't have electric gear, as a lot of people don't, what you want to do is just kind of bundle up with several layers, like 2 t-shirts, a sweater, a fleece thing, and then your motorcycle jacket. You want to trap the heat inside of you. But with electric gear, what that does is that I am wearing a t-shirt, then I'm wearing my Gerbing electric jacket, and that's it. That's it in below freezing. Electric jackets, you can get them pretty cheap, and I believe you can get them for like $150. And the electric jackets have like little leads where you can attach gloves. You see that right there? And what that does is that you can run the heat directly from your jacket to your gloves. You don't have to have all of these wirings running around. And then there's also leads that go for external pants if you have heated pants. I do caution about having electric gear. If you have electric gear and you run it on high all the time like I do, you need to have a good bike with ample electrical load, because I used to have my Ninja 250 and I had the same thing and it didn't have enough juice to really power it up, so it was always kind of lukewarm. It heated up the jacket, but it never really got enough power to the gloves. And with a Ninja 250, for example, you had to like rev over, I believe it was like 8,000 RPMs in order for the battery to charge up. So on this one, you can run it pretty low and it's not overtaxing that alternator. The layering does help even with electric gear, but I find that I don't need much. Like for the head, for example, one thing that you need is a mask. It's kind of like a thin ski mask. That's going to keep your brain nice and warm. You know, there's been days I got to work even with a baklava, as they call it. I felt like my brain was freezing. Smart wool products, especially for socks, it helps out quite a bit because it gets rid of all the moisture, and at the same time it's really warm. If you have a naked bike, if you have a sport bike, you want to consider having the biggest windshield possible. That is one of the things that you defeat the cold, is really getting the wind off of you. The wind chill will drop down so much more if you are riding without a big windscreen. I used to have a Speed Triple. That thing got so cold while riding. One time I rode somewhere in the middle of winter, freezing temps, and somehow the cable, like the clutch cable, broke or froze. It just completely froze. Because I would recommend absolutely installing heated grips on any of your bikes. Heated grips have gotten extremely cheap. I've seen a couple for like $30 that have the elements that go under your current grips. Even on a sport bike, even on a regular bike, install it. It makes life so much nicer to ride. Another thing I've used slightly, not too much, are those heated packets. You get them at Costco. They're like these chemical reactions. You open up the packet, put it inside your glove, and then you have heat for like an hour or two. Another way to keep warmer is to have some food in your stomach. If you haven't eaten, you tend to get a little bit colder, like your body will start to heat up when you eat, when you have something in. And that's another thing too. I've done rides and I've gotten so cold that nothing helps you out until you get your core temperature up, and it could take hours upon hours. So if you're doing like a long ride, you get cold, you want to take breaks and get some like coffee in you, hot chocolate, keep yourself warm that way. I did a ride to the Dragon on a speed triple, and I got this weird cold front and I almost got hypothermia. I got into a gas station and the lady felt really sorry for us. And the weird thing is, by the time we stopped there, it was actually warming back up. But my body was so cold, I was shaking so much. I was in the beginning of hypothermia. Still finished the ride. But the way I finished the ride, I didn't have electric gear. I used the homeless technique. I stuffed newspapers all over my clothes, and that acted as insulation. Make sure you get a SD1300 Goldwing. That's really like a good way of keeping nice and warm. You know, whenever I see one of these guys like me on a bike like this, and then I see a guy on a sport bike, I'm like, you have to give him way more props than you riding an SD1300 in the winter, because this thing, it's really not that difficult. I'm cold. I'm cold, but I'm not absolutely freezing. Another thing I've used on bikes are hippo hands. And if you watch my videos with me riding the scooter, I have these mitts over my handlebars, and it's a kind of like a shelter that you clip on to your handlebars, and it keeps the wind off of your hands. Tip for winter riding is keep your speed low. The slower you go, the warmer you get. Look how quiet it is. It is in the middle of winter, and I'm able to ride this very comfortably. I mean, it is freezing, but riding this thing, it feels like a hack, because it's just so comfortable. The wind protection just goes all around you. You have that nice windscreen. It's just one of these bikes that you can get for a fraction of what really this should be worth. It's always surprises me that Honda did stop making this bike, because it is a nice middle ground to the Honda Goldwing. You know, not a lot of people want to go balls out with this really large Goldwing, but they would prefer this, and this makes a much better sport machine than the new Goldwing. But that's pretty much it, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. Make sure you hit like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.